Okay. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Professor Rainbow Hall, my fellow colleagues and esteemed audience. So first, I'd like to thank the Faculty of Arts, which support this conference, and a very important conference on spirituality and neuroscience. So Hong Kong University has always been in the front line of the education and innovation as one of the most prestigious universities and institutes in the world. And we at the Hong Kong U has already put a much effort on how we were going to deal with the coming age of artificial intelligence, which is, very influential nowadays, right? So the AI will have great impact on our society and humanity, and which may also bring the turbulence to each of us economically and maybe emotionally. So in this sense, we know that spirituality may be one of the rare oases that remain to be our human as compared to AI. And the Center of Buddhism Studies have been launched study on spirituality and the traditional practice and exercise from a neuroscientific perspective long ago, like decades ago. So we have all Congress in our team, like me and Bonnie, Venom Hing Hong. We have worked a lot on this perspective. And we are one of the very few neuroscientific labs in the world that is solely devoted from the spirituality and religious practice. So our work has got great notice from the outside and reported by the medias like Newsweek, BBC, Buddhist Store, and of course the Hong Kong U website as well. So, and also, of course, the Center on Behavioral Health, as directed by Rainbow Hall, has also long been work on the mental health and the body, mind, and spirit. So their aim is to improve the mental health and use other methods like dance and music therapy and art therapy. Actually, Professor Hall, Rainbow Hall, is also a professional dancer and one of the championship in Latin dance. So he gave us a very excellent example of combining practice and academics. And of course, we also have wild collaboration with experts in engineering, neuroscience, medicine, and mathematicians. This will help us to develop the best strategy to improve human mental well-being. And again, this makes our center one of the first ISKCON in this world to better improve and boost mental well-being and mental capacity across the society. And the mental health and stability become so important nowadays, especially in the age of AI. Why is that situation? Because for the past decades, the materialism and technology had advanced so far, right? So we're actually capable of doing a lot of things. So this brings our humanity to a new stage. How can I say? One would say that we have already passed the so-called singularity in our way of revolution, right? So we are enter a new area, which is a kind of a deep water zone, can be both exciting and dangerous. As you may notice, currently the climate change and the regional conflict, and maybe we won't be very much surprised if there is a nuclear bomb dropped in Europe tomorrow, right? Because somebody are even expecting that. So you see, it can be rather dangerous in some way. And here also comes the artificial intelligence, which is way more dangerous than the nucleus, according to Elon Musk. And they say there's a probability like 10 or 20% that AI is going to get out of control. Or, yes, so just ask yourself, if there's way to go, and there is a 10% probability you're going to die or perish, are you going that way? Probably not. But we will have to follow that way anyway, because it's kind of dynamic, and no one can stop it. Or in Buddhism word, we may say this is karma. We are not sure, but what we can do is that how can we deal with artificial intelligence? And if we really look deep into the artificial intelligence, it's based on machine learning. And why it's become so powerful? Because it mimics the human brain's neural network. And it is trained on a tremendous data of humanity, all kinds of. So we can see that AI is actually something like a shadow of our human being, or I won't say it's our kids, but it's quite mimicking our behavior. And that is to say, if we like AI to do low evil, so maybe at the first place, we have to behave nicely, right? Just like the word, the Confucianism has said, 己所不欲，勿施於人. If you don't like it, don't do it to others. So that's why we hope that if AI get out of control or whatever, so he won't like wipe out us recklessly. So in this sense, Buddhism percepts like locating, compassion, or of course wisdom is seems most suitable for AI to follow. So, well, we hope the AI could be a Buddhism, but the general principle is that locating is very important. Even sometimes we will go on the road and will accidentally step on something like ant or whatever. But in the Buddhism precept, this is prohibited, right? So I think the Buddhism nowadays, or in spirituality in the broader sense, that is very important, will contribute tremendously to the ethics, to the guidelines of AI, how we should develop that. So that is one way. And this has to be done urgently, if possible, and before things become irreversible. So our scientists and the society need to improve our spirituality and moral standard to balance our physical and technology capacity with our moral capacity, right? So how can we improve ourselves? As we know, if you want to improve anything, first you have to know it, right? So, of course, we have traditional ways like Buddhism practice, art therapy, and that will, again, very much help us to improve our mental capacity, stability, and morality. Fortunately, the artificial intelligence can also greatly help us on our standing ourselves. and especially the complexity of the human body and mind. If you follow the timeline of evolution, and you just think about that from the single cell to multiple cell to mammalian and to human being, you would have a better understanding on the root cause of why everybody has great anger and ignorance. By AI, its computation power, we may have to simulate the situation so that everybody can understand ourselves. Yeah, if you really know that, you know where, if you can understand that, you know we are like 50 years old, right? But actually, if you follow the timeline of evolution, we know that we're not 50, we're maybe 5 million years old, because you look at the genetic, if not 5 billion years old as the age of the Earth. So this will help us to understand ourselves and again, planning our future for human beings. That's the purpose of this conference, to understanding ourselves and training our mind and practice more efficiently. For example, we can accurately measure your brain activity or mind state through neurofeedback, and maybe in the future individualized neural modulation, like brain entrainment through music therapy. We have expert here, like the Dr. Huang Gang. He's coming, and also we'll hope workshop this afternoon so that you can try the music entrainment, and maybe also your own brain activity, so you understand why your mind could not stop, because it's like the waves of the ocean. It's never stop unless you die, right? So, we'll also have a mind control zone games, which is actually follow the principle of the brain-computer interface. This is what the Neuralink, they're using the similar thing. So you can try that in our workshop, so you may understand better how our brain, our mind can influence the external world. So this game is very much funny, and we have tried that from the kindergarten to primary school, secondary school, and university, from the professors to the elderly. Everybody like it, because it just follows how we control this world, how the external and internal world they interact. And actually, this is based on the attention mechanism, which is it's the most important topic in neuroscience. And of course, attention is also the Buddhist meditation as the most widely existed attention-focused meditation, right? And also attention mechanism belongs to the machine learning algorithm. You know why this time the ChatGPT becomes so smart? Because they innovate this attention mechanism and in the neural network training, so that the ChatGPT suddenly becomes so smart, and it can pass this so-called tuning test. So this would be the best example of combination of practice and technology, combining our tradition with modern science. And of course, we will also have workshop by traditional practice as taught by Venerable Hing Hong and Venerable Fan Ti and Lama Ripa. They can teach us how to chant the mantra or the chanting Amitabha Buddha. With this traditional method, so we can still practice But for those non-believers or non-religious, so it's maybe easier for them to follow the more fashionable style. But anyway, I think the education of the population of our humanity, especially the young generation, I think that is very important for our future of the human. Just like 一靈天堂，一靈地獄. So with the tremendous physical and technology power everybody may have, it's really there's a possibility that a little bit kindness can bring us to the heaven, or it can also lead us to the hell. It's just, yeah, that is your mind. So we are at the best time of our humanity, and it could also be the worst. So it's your choice. Enjoy the conference. Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to present souvenirs to our speakers. Please, Professor Rimbaud, Dr. Bonnie, and Dr. Ernest Wu. Without further ado, let's introduce Professor Rimbaud, our keynote speaker. Professor Rimbaud is a professor in the University of Hong Kong, director of the Center on Behavioral Health, and a program director of master programs in behavioral health and expressive art therapy. With a background in biology, anatomy, social work, and a certificate in expressive art and movement therapy. He is a leading expert in the world in creative art therapy. So her research focused on mind-body connection and the therapeutic effect of arts for both healthy and clinical populations. Professor Hall has received numerous research grants and awards, and including Outstanding Achievement Award from the American Dance Therapy Association. And in 2023, I joined the WHO, GMO Arts and the Health Lab, and the International Creative Arts Therapy Research Alliance as a steering committee member. So his topic today will be the topic today is energizing the mind and the body, the therapeutic power of art. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Gao, for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me here, in particular in your busy schedule. So I also want to thanks at the beginning again to colleagues in the Center of Buddhist Studies, also colleagues in Center on Behavioral Health, and also Dongling Gok Yun, and the Buddhist Store, because all of them has spent quite a lot of time and effort in organizing this conference. So when I first encountered this title of the conference, Villages Chanting Arts Therapy, so please pay attention that I add S in the art, because I do not want to limit it to visual art therapy, but arts-based therapies which use different art modality, okay? And Buddhist counseling and brain entrainment. So I thought about how come these 4 topics, quite different, can be put together. So I'm trying to find some relationships and connections among them. Of course, I'm not the expert of all these 4 topics, but just up to my personal knowledge, I know that village chanting use music, use sound, use voice, right? Should be. Otherwise, it cannot be a chanting. And the sound and voice is definitely one of the modality we use in art therapy. Okay, in arts therapy, we use different modality, including dance movement, drama, expressive writing, visual art, and music and sound. So that's the connection. Of course, arts therapy, one of the important purpose is to support people who are in need. So this is the common place between counseling, right? Buddhist counseling. This is a specific approach and context in counseling and arts therapy. So again, I find the connection. And in all the therapeutic contexts, psychotherapy or counseling, relationship between the clients and the therapist is always the most important therapeutic factor, okay, towards the positive therapeutic outcome. That is what we know. And this relationship, much more relied on empathy, for example, and the synchronization. That is another word we used, synchronization. And perhaps this is also the relationship between 2 brains, okay? The therapist and the client. And that is how I can find all the connection among the 4 different topics, and then I understand a little bit clearer why these 4 topics can be put into one conference. And thanks again to this idea that Dr. Gao had, and also the support for the Faculty of Art for this conference, that I think it can bring together all the experts in these 4 topics so that we can exchange ideas and think deeper. All these 4 topics, as I mentioned, are interrelated. And this is also about connection, right? Connection to the self, because in the therapy, in the counseling, we can understand more about ourselves, and also connection to the others and the world. And only when we have the compassion and empathy, we can build up this connection. What I refer to is a positive connection, okay? Not negative connection. Compassion and empathy. And then perhaps we can find some new meaning or insightful meaning in our life. And when we look at these 3 different things or characteristics, we can use a term to summarize it. That is spirituality. When we talked about spirituality, we refer usually to these three characteristics: connections, compassions, empathy, and meaning and purpose. Again, I have to say, I'm not the expert of all these 4 topics, and I encourage you to continue to join us in the following sections, and in particular tomorrow. Okay? So, in this section, I'm going to talk about the topics I'm most familiar with, that is art or art therapy. When I think about art in this context, the Buddhist context, of course, immediately I can relate to many of the artworks in this religion. And in fact, in all other religions, different art media, like music, like visual art, are always the medium of a spiritual practice in different villages. So, and also the topic I'm going to talk more is energizing the mind and the body. And I have to say, in Chinese culture, sometimes we refer both the mind and the spirit in mind. Okay? Usually. But because we are using English, so I put it back, okay? Spirit. Energizing the mind and body and spirit. So that is what I'm going to say. I would like to share with you some of the evidence and examples, in particular studies we conduct in our center, to try to convince you about the power of arts. And then I want to put it into the context, maybe in Buddhism. So in fact, if you are aware, in 2019, there was a review report published in WHO. In that report, it collected and reviewed about more than 3,000 published articles related to the impact of arts in health and well-being. So in this review articles, it summarized the impact of arts on health in 4 major areas. One is promotion of good health, and also prevention of a range of mental and physical conditions, treatment of acute and chronic conditions, as well as management of different conditions across the lifespan. So I'm going to give you some example now. Depression is one of the very common issues in a busy city like Hong Kong, right? In fact, it is also a global issue, depression, and a major cause of suicides. So this was a study conducted a few years ago. And in this study, we tried to work with adults with major depressive disorders. And we used clay art therapy. And the finding indicate that after 6 weeks therapy, compared with the control group, participants in the intervention group, they show reduced depressive symptom and improved general mental health and holistic well-being. And the researcher and facilitator, Dr. Nam, who is also an art therapist, he explained that probably when we use the clay, that is also some physical effort we need to use the molded clay. Okay, so maybe this may help the participant to ventilate their emotion. But there may be much more that I will explain a little bit later. So in another study, I worked with breast cancer patients. So these breast cancer patients, they are waiting for radiotherapy. And you note, in radiotherapy, in particular, when the treatment is approaching the end, there will be burning pain on the skin. okay, because the radiation will hurt the skin. So this study, the patients, actually, they went to the hospital to receive the radiotherapy. And after the treatment, they came to the therapy room to join us in the dance movement therapy group. So in this study, we found that those who joined our dance movement therapy group, they have reduced the perceived stress, pain severity, and pain interference. So that means the pain is still there, but it's less disturbing. Right? That is an important message for us. Sometimes the art cannot resolve everything. There's still pain. But how can we perceive the pain and how can we interpret it, how can we feel it, is a little bit different after the intervention. And we conduct further analysis because we use biomarker salivary cortisol as one of the physiological index of the outcome of the intervention. And we found that the intervention also have beneficial effect on this biological marker. Okay, that is a stress hormone marker. A stroke is the issue, right? In particular, it is very common in older adults. But in recent years, younger adults had also an increased chance to have a stroke. 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. And when they had the stroke, you know, when they were young, the long period of recovery and also the impact will be even bigger. So in this study, again, this is a randomized control trial, we found that expressive therapy, which is a multimodality approach in using arts, can help the participant to reduce some of these symptoms in the long run. And also in the short term, it helped them have improved perception of social support and hope. That is important. And self-esteem. In the long run, after 8 months from the baseline, they have reduced anxiety symptoms, and also the intervention had positive effect on stroke-specific quality of life, and so on and so forth. So I want to draw your attention because this study was conducted on stroke survivor. And stroke survivor, many of the stroke survivors are male. Okay, because there's this common and misunderstanding that art therapy is only appropriate for female. But in fact, this study, we have 60%, okay, almost like 60% of the participants are male. Okay, and they found the intervention very helpful. Dementia, of course, everybody knows, is an increasing global issues. Because we have longer life, we have increased chance to have dementia. So in this study, we use music and movement to help people with moderate dementia in the elderly home. So this intervention is relatively a little bit simpler. And then we try to help the older adults with dementia symptoms to cope with their what we call the sundown syndrome. You know about sundown syndrome? Sundown syndrome is a bit of behavioral issues when there's around the time that is sunset. Okay, there's around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So you know the people who have moderate dementia, they will have some behavioral symptoms. They become very irritated. But when we have you know, the music a movement group. We play some music, and we have a facilitator to lead all the adults to do some movement, rhythmic movement. And we found that the behavioral symptoms become relieved and much reduced, according to the data. And in another study, I use dance movement therapy. That's my expertise. So in this study, we randomized 204 older adults with mild dementia in the community into 3 arms, okay, 3 groups. One is dance movement therapy group, one is exercise group, and one is control group. And we found that those who joined the dance movement therapy group had significant improvement in their depression, loneliness, that is very important factors, loneliness in older adults, negative mood, daily living, diurnal cortisol slope, that is also the physiological marker, over the control group. And after the intervention, we also observe cognitively participants in the DMT group will also benefit. They have improved the total memory retrieval and delayed recall. That is exciting. And this is a community project. So sometimes in our center, we are not only conduct research project, we also want to reach out to the community. So this project was funded by the Catholic Foundation. And in this project, we try to train and educate the helper in the elderly home to equip them with some of the skills of using arts to help their service users. So we reached out to 150 elderly centers in Hong Kong and served about more than 1,800 older adults with depressive symptoms. And we found that those who joined our intervention group, they have significantly reduction in depressive symptoms. So interestingly, in this project, originally, we also want to provide individual counseling service for those who have been severe, okay, have a severe situation. But at the end, we received the feedback that many of the older adults who joined the group, they're very happy. They don't need our service anymore. So that is why we proposed to have many, many case services, but at the end, we did not need to do that. So this is a project for children. And this project lasts for 3 years, supported by the Sophia Arts Foundation. And this project serves children and teachers and social workers in schools and agencies. And we also have the children to join our arts program, expressive art program. And we, of course, we also do some evaluation. And we found that children who attend the program had reduced emotional difficulties, hyperactivity, because some of the programs are specifically serve the children with SEN issues, as well as peer problem, that is more like a social issues. And all this behavioral improvement were not reported by children, but reported by the parents and teachers. So that's more reliable. So also for a specific group, like drug user, we have support received by the from the government, the Big Drug Fund. And this project reach out to adult drug users. And we try to use expressive art to support them in these issues. And this project also have what we call the community component. So we have public talk to try to try to raise the awareness of these drug problems in the public. And adult drug users who attend our art-based intervention, they report reduction in negative affect, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. And also they have enhanced self-compassion, improving drug-related advocacy, as well as positive affect. And you can see, in fact, that these are all the marks created by the drug users in the group. So mindfulness is one of the practice, okay, in Buddhism context. But mindfulness is also commonly used in different areas. And many years ago, in fact, this paper was published in 2016. So one of my, at that time, is PhD student, one of my PhD students worked with refugees who suffered from trauma because they have all this, political issues and then traumatic experience. And she used the mindfulness to help these clients. And of course, she is an art therapist. And she is still working in the Israel now, and also that area to support people who are in need. And in this study, we found that participants who joined the intervention, they report that the intervention helped them to see what they had previously not seen. And also it helped them regulate their emotions, express themselves in a safe way, so on and so forth. During the COVID, there is a lockdown period, right? People feel isolated, people feel anxiety, a lot of uncertainties. So at that time, we conduct an art therapy integrated with compassion component. And we try to deliver this compassion-based art therapy in a two format, online and offline. And also we try to look at what will be the difference between the two groups. And the result told us there's no significant difference between two groups. But that is a positive signal for us, because that means both groups, no matter it was delivered online or offline, showed similar effect. Both groups produced significant effect on the domains of self-compassion, mindfulness, resilience, and day-to-day affect. And this self-compassion attitude in particular can help them to cope with the stress during COVID. So so far, what I had shared is about some of the studies and projects we conduct. But what's next? The next question we want to ask, how and why? How arts can produce such impact? Of course, we can look at this question from different perspectives. Neuroscientific perspective, psychological perspective, physiological perspective, or even philosophical perspective. So again, I come back here. When I look at these four topics again, we always talked about connection and compassion and empathy. And one of the important approach to that is what we call the contemplative practice. My good friend, Michael Sankey, who is an art therapist, had offered a book, Art as Contemplative Practice. And in this book, he used his own experience of having cancer and being an art therapist, and how he coped with all this different experience of having cancer and also managing the cancer different stage and recovery, etc., through creating arts. And I also wrote a reflection on this because I found that there are many common understanding between us on this topic. So in fact, when we are engaged in art activity, when we are creating art, we need to be focused. We need to be concentrated. And this concentration and focus help us to calm down. Quite similar to what we do in mindfulness meditation, right? Focus, concentrate. And in fact, we can actually say, for example, art making is a practice of mindful contemplation. And in other book, that is about dance and creativity within dance movement therapy. So I try to look into what kind of movement or movement attributes that help in dance movement therapy. So not all movement help sometimes, but what is characteristic of movement or the components in the movement that helped in dance movement therapy? And I found 3 very important attributes. Aesthetic experience, of course, that is why it is within what we call creative art therapy. The aesthetic experience. It's not only about what we ordinarily refer to, beauty or ugly, etc., but refer to the connection or referring to the appreciation of something that you feel beautiful. Symbolic expression, it's like a poetic attribute. Symbolic expression is very important in all art-based intervention. And the last one, contemplative. That refers to the total involvement and engagement of your mind and the body, and of course, including your spirit. Sometimes people will use another word, flow experience. Okay, that is the flow experience described that status. And then other ways to explain why art therapy help is what we call the alternative space. Just like when you do your meditation or mindfulness meditation, it seems you enter another world. It's a peaceful world. But in art therapy, there is what we call the alternative world of experience. So in this world, there is unlimited space for imagination and play. That is the process, that you can use your creativity. And this space, in this space, it can also embrace distress, chaoses, and also provide you unlimited possibility and opportunity and flexibility. So this is also a space, what we call it, without limit in time or even in physical space, okay? So in art therapy, we try to facilitate our client into this alternative space so that the client can decenter from their issues for a while, so that they can focus on the art creation and try to get some insight during the process of art creation and then bring it back to their reality. So that is how art therapy works. And arts can also enhance compassion. And compassion, again, is one of the important components in Buddhist area. So in this project, actually, we try to enhance the community's empathy for people who have mental illness problem. And we also try to, what we call the, reduce the stigma of people in the community towards the people who have mental illness problem. So we invite people who have mental illness problem to create artworks. With their consent, we exhibit these artworks in the public space. So people in the public space, in the shopping mall or in other MTR stations, etc., they could view these artworks, and we also invite them, if they can, to offer us some feedback. So at the end, we conduct evaluation and research. We found that those people who watch these artworks have increased empathy towards people with mental illness. So this is another paper that documented one of the example. In the figure 3, that is in the almost like in the middle of the slide, that is artwork created by the patients. In this artwork, the patient expressed doubt in her faith as a result of mental illness. But still, she has some hope. In the figure 4, the figures next to this, that is from a community member who watched the image. And this community member used similar colors to reflect and empathize the artwork created by the patients. And then he or she also asked how to transform her pain. It seems that the community member understands the pain that the mental illness patients had. And then he tried to offer help. And here, the image underneath is from a mental health worker. This is the meandering river. And it represents a flow around the obstacles. So this image also tries to offer some solution to these mental health patients. Okay, flow around the obstacles. Okay, maybe you can get through. So from this example, we can see how the art can help people to understand more about the artists who create their artwork, regardless their conditions. So in understand that the impact of arts, I have worked with a group of international scholars who try to review some of the studies and try to understand how art therapy works. So among the 67 articles we finally had, we found that there are some common factors against psychotherapists. For example, good therapeutic relationship, empathy, these are common. Okay, also in Buddhist counseling, same. And then there are some joint factors of creative art therapy. That means they are common across all these different kind of creative art therapy, regardless what the modality you use. And of course, each specific creative art therapy, for example, music therapy, art therapy, dance music therapy, they have specific factors that contribute to the positive therapeutic outcome. So I want to draw your attention to the joint factors here, because they are across all these creative art therapies. So these three joint factors are embodiment, referring to, for example, body awareness, physicality of art. Even you use visual art, when you draw, you are moving your arms and hands. So that is physical movement. Okay, music, same. When you are playing a musical instrument, even when you are singing, you are using your body. Experience of the body, that is important across all art modality. Concretization, that means creating something visible. Visible means put that into different art forms so that you can see it. Visual art, for example, movement, for example, drama, for example, or you can hear it, etc. Reenactment, that is a term usually in psychotherapy. Reenact it again, play it again. Self-display, a visual narrative. Symbolization and metaphor is also one of the important factors. And that is very unique in arts. Okay, because arts actually bypass the language. Right? It uses image, uses voice and sounds and movement, etc. So this is one of the example I want to put into the practice. Embodiment. And this was a study conducted by Tammy, who is sitting there, Dr. Tammy Lowe. Actually a branch study of our stroke project. So in this study, because we know that across all art therapies, embodiment is very important. So when we use arts, there should be some experience in the body. And for people who have stroke, we know that there may be some parts of their body, they cannot feel it, or they cannot control it or move it, right? Because of stroke. So that may be interesting to know how they feel about their body within their body. Even the parts that cannot be controlled. So yeah, that is a very interesting study. And we found that in the intervention group, stroke patients who participate in our expressive therapy group, they report more positive changes in their body perception. And you can see actually this is the baseline and this is the after the intervention. There's a no more, okay, the distinct, the two parts of the body. Okay, usually before that they will feel, oh, one part of my body, I can feel it, but the other part, no, okay. But after the intervention, you can feel that line dissolved, right? That may be something, okay, inside their body happening. Concretization, this is another study conducted by my PhD student who graduated, of course, now Dr. Wong. So Dr. Wong actually look at the relationship between the mother and very young children, okay, about 6 years old, 7 years old. So in fact, when we want to study with children who actually are so young, it's difficult to ask them to talk about their experience, right? And ask them to fill in the questionnaire sometimes because they're too young. So in this project, we use painting and drawing. So this is an approach we sometimes use in art therapy. So on the same paper, we ask the mother to draw on one side at the beginning, and the child to draw on the other side. And then later, they will decorate their own space with a boundary. And after that, we will ask them to draw a connection between the two spaces. Sometimes they will draw a letter like this, sometimes they will draw a row, etc. And after that, they will work together to fill in the space which they have not yet filled in. And after they create this drawing, we invite them to talk about the drawing, and then gradually they can talk about their situation and the relationship. For example, the young child will talk about his or her relationship with her mother, what kind of issues and what kind of experience he or she has in this context. So that is the way that we sometimes will do in art therapy. And art can help them to put something, visualize. Okay, that is what we call concretization. Symbolism and metaphor. So that is easy to understand, right? So in this study, we try to invite the breast cancer patients to draw about their experience of their cancer. So these are the symbolic representation of the cancer or cancer experience. And usually at the end, you can find in their drawing, there may be beautiful landscape, sunshine, sometimes rainbow, flowers, butterfly, representing their transformation after the intervention. So this is another study. Again, one of my PhD students conduct, Anna. So she tried to understand the inner work of people who have autism. So in this study, she tried to analyze their images and try to use her knowledge in different philosophy and psychology to try to understand the characteristic of the images and what symbolic meaning the images conduct by this population. And usually it is not easy to understand people who have autism. So far what I talked about is different aspects to understand why art therapy helps. But of course, there's one very fractioned study and research in this area, that is neuroscience. I'm not the expert, but maybe the next section you can hear more about this, or the section in the afternoon by Dr. Wang will talk more about the neuroscience aspect of art therapy. But that is my shallow understanding. At least, arts can stimulate different parts of the brain, right? Like music, like movement, like visual art, they can stimulate different parts of the brain. And maybe this stimulation with arts can help our brain to work in a more synchronized way, like an orchestra. Okay, sometimes we will think about, okay, when different parts of our brain work together, sometimes it will be a bit chaotic. 混亂, okay, chaotic. But if different parts of the brain can work together in a synchronized way, like an orchestra, it will become a very beautiful scenario. Very different. And also, to my knowledge, this is an old study. Some researcher found that, wow, we know that meditation can help people to have an increased alpha wave in their brain that is related to attention, relaxation, awareness, etc. But some other researcher who also studied that in dancer, they found a similar effect and outcome. So that means no matter we are moving or we are sitting, we can have similar outcome, right? Neuroplasticity, this is a new term in the past decades, and many people are working on that. And this is, the image of the new neuron, a real neuron. And the upper one is my drawing, just my drawing. So neuroplasticity gives chance for nerve to grow, okay, to connect and reconnect, etc. So that means it creates possibility for us to change, okay, in our brain. And that changes does not have limit on age, okay? So that is an important message. So that's why some study found that for a group of people who dance, they have improved integrity in their brain. That means their white matter become a little bit more than those who did not dance. So that may be some anatomical or structural changes in their brain, but also may be referring to the growth of neurons. So that's why some researchers start to advocate, oh, people should dance. Okay, please dance. Because dance, when we dance, we are moving our body, we are listening to the music, we are seeing the space. There's a multisensory activity. So maybe that has a lot of potential in treating neurodegenerative disorders. And there have been some evidence. Okay, power of arts. One of the things that I did not mention, but I think you know that. In particular, it related to symbolism and metaphor. When we use art, sometimes we can bypass language and connection. Of course, this is especially useful for people whose language skills and cognitive ability is not so good, right? But sometimes, even for ordinary people, there may be occasions that you cannot describe something, use language, right? Difficult. In that case, art works. So art works. That means it can cause culture, cause nations to be more inclusive. And in this context, it makes me to think about the story of Buddha. I think you know more about that, right? Some of you. The story of Buddha, one day Buddha wanted to give lecture. So many students come. And then Buddha just hold a flower without saying anything. But one student immediately know what the Buddha want to say. Okay? So that is maybe very common. Maybe the same for we use art, when we use art, right? Sometimes we don't need to say anything. But with an image, with a movement, with a sound, we know that. We understand that. Polyaesthetic is a concept in art therapy, in expressive therapy in particular. What does it mean? Okay, it means the form in art is never static. Right? I quite find similar to a concept in Buddhism, animitta. Absence of sign and perceptual attributes. Well, there are many experts here, so you can ask them, okay? Not the monk. You can ask them, what does it mean by animitta? My understanding is that absence of perceptual attribute. Putting it into arts, in expressive therapy, we have this concept, polyaesthetic. That means from one form or one art form, you can actually see another forms. For example, I give you this palm, a very famous form in Chinese. And I use ChatGPT to help me to translate it. AI, what Dr. Gao say. So that is a poem in Tang Dynasty. And from this poem, from this language, this word, you can start to have a mental image, right? The mountain, the rain, the autumn, the leaf, the moonlight, etc. Okay? So when you see this text, this word, you start to create mental image. There's a picture in your mind. And then some of you may also start to hear the sound of water in the river. Okay? 清泉石上流. Oh, you hear the sound of water. And maybe you can also hear the sounds of the ladies after they wash the clothes. Maybe some of you can see the movement of the lady or the moving water in the river. Okay, I use the ChatGPT again to help me create the image. So that is what we call polyaesthetics. Within one art form, for example, this image, you can see, you can hear the sounds of the water if you can use your imagination. Maybe you can also see the moving water, use your imagination. So that is why we call, from one art form, we can see all other art forms. That is the concept of polyaesthetic. So that means there's no form. And I articulate it as the concept of animitta. Right? Not a static, specific, perceptual attribute of anything. So we always try to say transform, transformation. And transform is what? From formless to form to formless to form. Right? And I have talked about the project of depression, right? I work with adults with depression, use clay art therapy. So for molding this clay into different form, there's a process of deconstruction and reconstruction. So from formless to form, that's one of the important process in art therapy as well. It also refers to, we put something that is formless, like unconscious, like emotion. There's a formless into form, a specific art form that we can work with. So, in fact, any art material contains this implicit transformative healing metaphor. Because you can curate it, you can mold it, and of course you can break it down, etc. So art creations result in formation of something new, which will open to new experiences and invite new insights. But moving from form to formless also incorporate the need to let go. Okay, so that is closer to concepts in Buddhism, empty or emptiness. So this transformative power in art also can help us to deal with impermanency, uncertainty. So this is the last project I want to share. So during the COVID, we worked with Department of Health, and we tried to organize some online workshops with a very passionate team of the expressive therapist. So in this workshop, we tried to introduce the concept of embracing impermanency using arts. In particular, attending to the unique nature of art and its transformative power. Okay, this project actually, of course, received some positive feedback. So, a summary. The power of arts, I have shared with you some of the evidence that we collect and we found. It can energize the mind and body and spirit. But more for that, in particular, art has that ability to bring limited things to unlimited. So always clients come to us. Sometimes they are stuck in something. They are stuck in some condition. They are stuck in some box and perspective. But in the alternative space we create in the arts, they can expand their understanding. They can expand their possibility and flexibility, etc. So then they can work with them. Verbal and non-verbal, both of them, both channels of communication we will use in art therapy, and that helps. Formless to form, let's put something invisible, unconscious into conscious and visible. And all this, at the end, we want to connect. We want to build up connection. We want to establish and enhance compassion. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Maybe we can take a rest for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Privilege to introduce Dr. Jining Gao, a good colleagues at the center. Dr. Gao is a research assistant professor specializing in neuropsychology, medicine, and Buddhism. His research dives into the neuroscientific aspects of religious chanting, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and awareness training program. Dr. Gao is also pioneering the use of advanced techniques such as wearable EEG and brain stimulations to study the effects of meditations and spirituality. With a multidisciplinary background, Dr. Gao is uniquely positioned as one of the leading experts in neuroscience of meditations and spirituality, applying cutting-edge methods to explore their real-world applications and therapeutic potential. Maybe we give a big hand to Dr. Gao and welcome his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest, for your kind introduction. So, okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about here about a grand picture of how our spirituality or our consciousness evolve from our brain structure to the future in age of AI. Okay, so as we know, when Elon Musk was saying we're going to send Earth humans to see Mars, he actually mentioned this will be the first time that we'll send the consciousness in the Earth to the Mars. So actually he mentioned it's consciousness rather than the human body. So that marked, what's the most important of Earth, maybe our mind instead our body, right? So this may mark a new age of human, or the evolution on the Earth, which is 4.5 billion years old. So to understand all this floor, we can have a look at how the evolution happens on our blue planet, the Earth, from the single cell to multi-cell, from reptilians to mammalians, and then to human being. But of course, we will focus more on the brain, the nervous system, which is where me are there in our brain. So we can see here the evolutionary tree of the brain. We have different forms, from very simple ones, and to we can go different direction. Here, but for human being, we are here. It's one of the branches. So that's what we say. We actually, we are very old. I mean, in a genetic sense. So also means we are very smart. And additionally, this still happens for every of us, because individual development will follow the species evolution. That means even for us, we are actually in our early stage, we're like a worm, and then go later to our current human brain. But we repeated that process, which is called phylogenetics. So here we are. So we have a brain like this, quite complicated. And for neuroanatomy, that's a course for medical students which will study like even 1 year. But basically, I can introduce something very basic so that you can understand how the brain works. Basically, we have 3 levels. At the deep level, the brain stem, which is in charge of our body, which we call reptilian brain, and it is in charge of us, in charge of our body, okay? And then there is limbic system, and we call it mammalian brain. It's like a dog or whatever. And then the neural cortex, we call this new cortex because it's only late development, and it's for the intelligence, calculation, and maybe AI. Okay, so let's study. So that means each of us actually have 3 persons inside our brain. We have 3 temples. Sometimes we're very with a lot of instinct of ourselves, and the purpose for this is we have to survive, right? Wherever we are, we have to survive. And so there is the brainstem that work for us. And it's very great, and that's why the kind of motivation or motivation that is go from the single worm cell to an organ as huge as a dinosaur, like an airplane, that big size. And then it's very selfish, very big appetite, always like big. Like also you go to the Wall Street, those economy, those financial crocodile, they always want more and more money, right? Never enough. So that is actually great. That's how you see it. Everybody, we have it. And then here comes the limbic system, which is more support our emotion, like feel playful, feeling anger. And it also support our motivation, long-term memory. And of course, the smell. Also the compassion. So it's like this, a fire. And then it can be just as, whoa, burning out everything, just like the Buddhism saying has, 一念真生起，燒毀功德林. Yeah, it's a flash of thing. Anger can burn down a forest of memory, right? That's why we need skill and we need calculation. Before you really get yourself into anger and attack others, you have to be skillful. And that's why we need the neural cortex. And that's why we human beings have a bigger and a bigger calculation. just as so we human beings are really powerful at calculation, but not very powerful at body fighting, right? We can't fight a tiger. So thus we are focused more on calculation, intelligence, and wisdom. And then we go to the next stage of focus on the intelligence, or we call it now the artificial intelligence, which even go further beyond our neural cortex. It's a compilation of all intelligence of human history. So it's also based on the neural network, learning from the human brain. And of course, there's some kind of dispute whether AI has consciousness. And people nowadays begin to fear whether AI will eventually replace us because he's capable to do so many things, right? And they say there is coming the robot like 5 or 10 years, and maybe also the AGI, the artificial general intelligence, and then the ASI, the artificial super intelligence. So what will happen to us? That's why we are going to study the spirituality and including Buddhism as one of the way which may be help us to solve the problem of existential fear and how to calm down ourselves amid this potential tsunami of AI. And we don't have to worry too much, because if you really study the human brain, you will find it's maybe more than complicated than your thoughts. We have 100 billions of neurons, which is similar to the stars in our Milky Way galaxy. So we also have 100 trillions of synapses. So it's a huge neural network that is capable of doing a lot of things. And our neural network is even mimics the galaxies in the universe. So this may indicate of the potential power of our human brain as well. If you look at the white matter, as Professor Hall has just shown a study on the white matter, we see there's a lot of collections among all these brain regions. And the basic unit of a brain is the neurons. So it's like a tree, has a lot of collection. So here is the synapse that is collect neurons, and it can up to 40K individual collections. Yeah, it works like this, always sending out the electrical. This is really the same electricity as we just see the light. It is totally the same, but in much, much smaller scale. In that sense, we would say that it's giving us information like like Morse code. It's the same way as you're listening to me, I'm talking to you. We can never talk to each other only by this electrical signal that brain can interpret it. So in that sense, we are actually living in a virtual world. Just as I mentioned, very similar to the Buddhism saying, just as I show you this white color, right? But can you really ever see white color? No, you can't. You have to use your neurons, like here. So you see something, and then here it will transform your color to electricity. So here we only got the do. It's unique. You can never see a color really, and I can never touch you as well. So we are already in a virtual world. Elon Musk has once said the probability of the reality its virtual reality is 99% line. But we would say that is 100%. We are living in the virtual reality because we can only got the sense of electricity. But of course, according to Buddhism, that may be something higher. So we are open to that question. So, but here, from the neuroscience, we did in a world of complicated electricity, the network that is able to simulate a lot of things, like something like the metaverse, because it is able to simulate whatever you see, just like I see you, you see me. It is all simulated, and we'll have different stage because it's very dynamic. You are going to at rest, or sometimes there is a cloud, and whatever happens there, it's like it's like a virtual things. And if you don't believe that, just look at the clinical cases of epilepsy. So when I'm talking to you very well, but at next stage, next second, I would be like something like this. Did you ever see those epilepsy patients? So previously everything's going well, and then there suddenly comes a tsunami of brain waves, and then it wipes out your brain network, and so everything is gone, and you like this, and you lost consciousness as well. So that's a very vivid example to see we are actually the electrical brain waves actually control everything what we are doing. And there's no structure problem of this epilepsy patient actually. But epilepsy can also happens part of the brain, so you will have the partial symptoms, like sometimes you feel like this, and you feel something special. Well, it could be a symptom of partial epilepsy. So there's information processing all the way, and similarly in the Buddhism school, we have different source processings, and in Theravada Abhidhamma, so there's very analytical and a philosophical aspect. So like a Bhavanga, okay, maybe let's look at the picture here. So if you look at this, you can see there's very analytical to see what is this. So the past Bhavanga, vibration, resting, and then the 5 sense store, adverting consciousness, sense store consciousness, receiving consciousness, the feeling, examining, conceptual proliferation and impact of the experiences. Well, this is, I'm a neuroscientist. I feel this way to analyze the signal is very similar to how the brain works on the information we have. Something like this. First, you got information from the outside, and then you go to, here's the art, right? You got simile, and then you got to the occipital lobe to process it, and then you go up for space information, the where it is, and this temporal lobe for memory is what it is, and then you got some conclusion, and then you take action in the motor area. So it's quite similar, although not exactly the same. So you will see, wow, how fascinating. The early Buddhism also knows this kind of process, because we don't know this, only we have the EEG, or we can, because it's happened very quickly in millisecond. So in 1 second, you're already done with all this. So usually you won't imagine that. And yes, also they have fact aggregate Buddhism. And for the Mahayana Buddhism, we also see that, for example, in the Avattama Sakha Sutra, Hua Yan Jing, it said this is very famous, right? That is, his mind is like a skilled painter, able to paint all the words. The 5 aggregates all rise from it, and there's no Dhamma that does not could not create. So quite similar idea, right? And now it's if you look at this from the modern computational science, and you will see that the brain actually very good at rendering. Rendering means it can painting something. We got the information, but we don't have a lot of the information. But it can render something like we only see information like this. We don't have a lot, but somehow your brain can render it to see, wow, a lot of vivid things. So that is similar to the things. So we also mentioned that 你諗多咗. But really, that's happening in our brain, and we're capable to do that. That's also that we just a little bit information, we can think a lot. That's our capacity. So we are living in this world, which is like Dhamma Sutras mentioned. It's like a dew, like a dream, or emerging from your mind, and that's where we can, since it's virtual. On the other hand, we are able to modulate it some way, right? It also, if you go to the quantum physics to see the world is like a virtual one, and there's many waveform function, and what you say is where the function is going to collapse there. So what do you say you like to say? Something like that. So then it's we go to more Buddhism, that is mind only or mere consciousness. So you are capable to somehow modulate what you are going to experience and see, right? So, sorry, I have to show this picture to see your brain actually have a good response to this, because this is danger. But somehow, if you practice Buddhism like religious chanting, you kind of capable to modulate your response to that. So how can we prove that? We do an experiment to show you the pictures of the fearful picture, and then at the same time you're chanting Amitabha Buddha as you practiced, right? But as control, we have to chanting center class as well, and then there's no chanting. So something like this, we show a picture and your brain will respond to it. And we show a bloody hand, your brain has a further response to it, which we call the later positive potential. This is, and then we ask you chanting Amitabha Buddha or as a control condition, the center class. And what we found is that your brain can actually very quickly respond to this kind of information. Usually it will go like this. This is baseline. This is normal hand. And if you're chanting at the, if you see a bloody hand, your brain has an additional response to it. But if you're chanting center class, it's actually, it seems that it looks like a normal thing instead of bloody hand. Okay, let's see this picture. So here, if you see a normal hand, a bloody hand, so you will have additional response here when you see it. But if you're chanting chanting Buddha, so the difference between the normal and bloody would simply disappear, or very little. And when you're chanting Santa Claus, it's still there. That mentions your brain response to the fearful or unhappy thing will simply disappear. It's the second stage. But some people may say, okay, maybe you're chanting, you didn't look at the picture. We check the early stage. It is still there. So this is a response to the bloody hand. This is normal Santa Claus and the Amitabha Buddha. So you see, it's early stage. This is early stage brain response. This is later stage. So early stage, we still see it. And the later stage, response disappear to the fearful picture. And also you can see here, so this area which is responsible for the fearful stimuli. So when you're chanting center, chanting Buddha, it's disappear. And also we have the heart response. We can also find the similar things. And this finding is quite similar to the Salasa Sutra, which is said a well-trained person will still, they will have physical pain, and if somebody get pain, but only that he won't have additional a lot of thoughts afterwards. So something like 人多咗, he won't think too much after that. So this is a well-trained practitioner, as mentioned by the Salasa Sutra. This study you can find online. We have a video to introduce it. Actually, we have a serious study on that, about 3 or 4 studies. So you can always find in our website or online, So if we come to this, we have to think about the future evolution of humanity, where there is a bit dangerous, something like, if you can imagine that, the nuclear war, the AI, right? And then the biochemical weapon like COVID, we're not sure. And then I'm not sure whether there happens to be the genetic modulation. How about if somebody in the future, we are kind of genetic modified, so that guy becomes super smart? Would that be still human or superhuman? So in that case, where will we be, right? So we're actually in a kind of a situation that is mixed with both fascinating but also a potential danger of distinction of human species. So the reason for this is that we are focused on the developing our physical or technology power, so that we actually ignore the spiritual and moral fissure. So we have to balance our physical and the spiritual part, so that we are more balanced. Or we were like an adolescents, just hold a nuclear weapon. You see, it's not very stable, right? And it's always our choice, like the technology. You are going to use it in the war, or you're going to use it in the agriculture, which can greatly help us. So I guess in this stage, it's always like the strategy. In the past, I think it's always like zero-sum game, because I win, you lose. Or in the evolution, you like the lions eat the sheep, right? So one all lose, another one all win. Well, I'm not saying it's always wrong, because I think it's very efficient. Like during evolution, you just eliminate something not so efficient, and that's also happened maybe in the AI algorithm. We just deleted something not efficient. But currently, after we kind of passing the singularity of human evolution, so we have to go to the next stage. And we are not sure we can still stick on this zero-sum, because nowadays, no one can really kill others, right? You can, because everybody has nuclear weapon, and maybe in the future, the AI weapon. So we have to go to the win-win strategy, to collaborate and to cultivate the compassion and long-killing among ourselves. And we have a lot to learn from the Buddhism, that is to see our root cause of all this suffering and the conflict, this greed, hatred, and ignorance. And because we have, nowadays, I'm not sure whether you have always desire for wealth, power, and exploitation and conflict. That's why I think we need to educate the whole population, especially the younger generations, to just try to deal with the situation. I mean, let's learn from the traditions like religions, Buddhism, Christian, Muslim, and also in the broad sense, spirituality. So in this way, the spirituality or in Buddhism, which will not only help us, right? We can meditate by ourselves alone, but on the other hand, the principles of Buddhism can also save us as a whole, the humanity at this population level. And it also may help us to guide in the AI aspects, which can be very important. Yes, this is how we guide them. You want to be a AI with learning from us with great ignorance and anger, or you like it with compassion or non-self, or yeah, this is the way we choose and train our future. And hopefully we can have our consciousness and spirituality transferred to the AI and guiding, and just to ensure a sustainable development of humanity. Okay, thank you so much. Let's see, we will have time for questions. We have time for, we have time for 1 or 2 questions, yes. From here or online. So if no more questions, maybe we can go on to the next speaker, Dr. Bonnie Wu.
Thank you, Dr. Gao. I would say, like, personally, I'm uniquely qualified to introduce Bonnie because I know her for more than 20 years. Yes, like when we were 5 years old and acquire all the artificial intelligence. Dr. Bonnie Wu, thank you. It gives me great pleasure and like honor to introduce you for our next presentation. Dr. Wu is a lecturer at the Center of Buddhist Studies, the University of Hong Kong, with PhD and also BSW, social work from Hong Kong U, and a registered social worker. Her research focuses on Buddhist counseling, Buddhist-based interventions, mindfulness, meditation, and the intersections of Buddhism and neurosciences. Dr. Wu teaches several courses, including group work in Buddhist and traditional counseling, the ATP, many of you should be very familiar now, like awareness training program, and advanced research methods in Buddhist counseling. She is deeply involved in promoting Buddhist educations and mindfulness practice in both academic and community settings. With great privilege, thank you and welcome, Dr. Wu.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor Ho, Dr. Gao, and my beloved fellow, Dr. Ernest Ng, and also dear friends and students, and welcome to attend this conference. I'm happy to share a little bit about the application of the awareness training program in Buddhist counseling. So just a very brief introduction about the awareness training program, actually how it is related to this topic. The awareness training program is a Buddhist-based intervention, and it's a group-based intervention that is theoretical, and also the practice are aligned and also developed based on Buddhism. So this is kind of a Buddhist counseling program in a group-based approach. And also the meditation that we taught is using the Om Mani Padme Hum, and we have religious chanting, and also we teach this with the contemplative practice, just Professor Ho has mentioned about in her arts therapy. They also use the contemplative practice, but in Buddhist meditation, like all the other Buddhist meditation, that we have the shamatha practice as well as the vipassana practice in this program. So here I'm going to introduce a little bit about how why we developed the awareness training program, in what context that we developed the awareness training program, and also we are going to research. I'm going to introduce about our research on the awareness training program, and actually Dr. Kao has also been collaborating with me in doing all these research together, and we have also Venerable Hin Hong and also other colleagues. And then at the end, we'll have share a little bit about the significance and contributions about our research. So as a Buddhist base, or even more specific, Buddhist teaching-based intervention, why we think that we would like to develop a Buddhist teaching-based intervention. And going back to 1980s, I think some of you may have a little bit understanding about the development of the mindfulness-based intervention. And at that time, Professor John Kabat-Zinn, who is he is a practitioner in mindfulness, and he found that many people are suffering from pain. They do not be able to get relieve their pain from the medical perspective or from the medical doctors. So he started thinking to develop a new program that is the first mindfulness-based intervention called MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. And since then, many mindfulness-based interventions have developed using various theoretical base or using various non-Buddhist components. And so as time goes, so there is a growing concern regarding the mindfulness-based intervention is that they lack foundational congruence and applied the practice of mindfulness in an out-of-context manner. What it means by the out-of-context manner is that you see that here, the Noble Eightfold Path, because the mindfulness actually is derived as one of the components of the Noble Eightfold Path, and without interacting with other important components in the Noble Eightfold Path, we think that it may not be as powerful or as with using all the components that are based in Buddhism. So we think that how about we use the whole path as a Buddhist theoretical, both the theoretical and practice with the Buddhist approach. So in fact, there are two Buddhist paths or two Buddhist models. The first one is the Arahat path, and then the other, which is based on the Theravada Buddhism, and the other could be the Mahayana path. That is the Chinese Buddhism as also the Tibetan Buddhism are under the Mahayana path. But if we try to, if we try to fit in with the modern psychology model, we'll think that the Arahat path could be regarded as the pathological or medical model, while the wellness model would be the Mahayana path. So why is that so? The Arahat path is the main goal is to end suffering in particularly the suffering of reincarnations. The core teachings is the Four Noble Truths. And even in the Buddhist text, you can find the metaphor, suffering is like the disease. And the causes of suffering is just the craving and the ignorance. And the cessations of suffering is the cure. And the path is the medicine. So by seeing that in the medical approach in the Western world or in the prevailing world we cure the disease by identifying the disease and identifying the causes of the disease and and it is possible to cure the disease, and the path is the medicine. So one of the Buddhist teaching-based interventions that is using the medical approach is the Dharma therapy. How about the Mahayana path then? Why it is regarded as the wellness model? So instead of targeting the suffering and the elimination of suffering, the Bodhisattva is driven by a deep compassion to save all sentient beings from suffering. What it means for a Bodhisattva, suffering is not something to be eliminated, but is a means to develop compassion. And with wisdom and compassion, a Bodhisattva will have the skillful means to deal with all the challenges he or she would face while remaining in samsara to save all beings. That is what to say that is we are not aiming to eliminate or the suffering, or as we are not aiming to be liberated from the samsara. Of course, a Bodhisattva would like to be liberated from the samsara, but at the same time, the Bodhisattva, he has a deep compassion to remain the samsara because they want to save the sentient beings who are also suffering in the samsara. And so instead of focusing on eliminating the suffering, they are more focused on developing the wisdom and the compassion, and so that they could help all sentient beings to save them, to liberate from the samsara world. So a wellness model, actually, if from the Western perspective, is to cultivating some good qualities. For example, eating well, trying to look at what are the nutritions that can maintain our health, or maybe doing some Tai Chi, or maybe doing some physical exercise. These are the wellness model. So why we think that a Mahayana Buddhist teaching-based interventions would be a good approach that for us to be focused on? Because sometimes when you always talk to others, oh, the world is full of suffering, it's full of greed, hatred, and ignorance. How you feel? Oh, your emotions will be a little bit getting low, right? But instead, we are saying that how about we are cultivating the compassion and wisdom? It sounds more accepting, right? More appealing, right? So as compared with the pathological approach emphasizing the impermanence and suffering, it sounds more appealing and also acceptable to the general public. And also, if you have joined the ATP, you will find that we are not trying to look at individual problem. We are not always emphasizing is to ask you to share what is your problem and then to dealing with individually. So actually, we are aiming to enhance the participants' compassion and wisdom. We think that we don't need to focus on individual problems because through enhancing or cultivating the compassion and wisdom, automatically or eventually, somehow your problem will be alleviated. So it is kind of thing that a wellness model will be suitable to run in a group setting. Another unique quality of the awareness training program is it is a textually aligned approach, and it is a coherent in theories and practice. why we think that this is important? Because we think that it could avoid the potential danger of inconsistency between theory and practice. We find that in the current mindfulness-based interventions, many of them, they have incorporated different lineage or schools in one intervention. And in fact, there are thousands of sacred Buddhist texts that belong to many different schools and lineage, and each has its own emphasis and theoretical inclinations. So if we try to integrate different lineage or different schools into one whole intervention, there is potential danger that will bring cognitive dissonance. And further complicated the situation is that within both the Theravada and also Mahayana Buddhism, there are sub-schools and lineages, and each have its unique theory and practice. So adopting the textually aligned approach that can ensure that the theory and practice that are employed in one whole interventions are derived from a text that have similar background in both theory and practice. And so what is ATP then? It is a group-based program based on the Mahayana Buddhist teachings and practice, and it is textually aligned to Mahayana Sutra. Both the theory and practice are coherent, and the duration of this practice, of this program, is 6 weekly 3-hour workshops plus 1 weekend day retreat. The theoretical foundations of ATP is rooted from the Sani Mahayana Sutra. And this is one of the most important texts of Yogacara traditions, which is the mind-only school. And it is assumed that the source of human suffering is the result of attachment to an illusory concept of self arisen from the delusive understanding of the world. Similar to all the Buddhist teachings, we assume that the human suffering is the attachment of the illusory self. And the Salimacchana Sutra states that the cause of this delusion and attachment is that people add a conceptualized nature on top of the dependent nature and real nature. What it means, let me go to the next slide and then go back here. So actually, the Salimacchana Sutra has explained and qualified that how to explain the phenomenological experience by the 3 following types of characteristics. The first one is the characteristics of mere conceptually grasping. What it means, we have many concepts. For example, if you see a flower, flower is a concept, right? You just see something and then you label it, you name it as a flower. Sometimes, and with different colors, you may name it as red flowers, blue flowers, yellow flowers, right? And sometimes, actually, this is just a concept. If you put it not in English, how you say that labeled the flower in Cantonese would be fa, in 普通话 would be hua. Actually, this is just something that is mere conceptual grasping. And the second is the characteristics of dependent origination. A flower, there are many, somehow is kind of more concrete. What is the components of a flower? You can see that there is stem, there is leaf, and then there are petals. There are all many different components that comprise together, and then we give it a name of the flower. But actually, all these components with all these leaves, stems, and then the petals, and then comes together, this is dependent originated. And then the third is the perfect characteristics of reality. That is the true essence or the true nature of the flower. So that is the emptiness nature. But going back to here, sorry, going back. So what we means, people add a conceptualized nature. That is the first nature that I've just mentioned, is the mere grasping. Adding a conceptual nature on top of the second one that I've just explained, that is the dependent nature. And the third one that I've just explained is the real nature. We try to add a conceptualized nature on top of the dependent nature and real nature that makes us suffering. We don't see the real nature of the phenomenon. And actually, these three types of characteristics, when we examined closely, we reveal the three types of emptiness or essencelessness characteristics. In brief, is that all these characteristics, no matter the concept that we labeled have, and also the dependent origination, and also the real characteristics, all are emptiness in nature, or they are saying that it's essencelessness. They don't have anything you can find at all. It is just essencelessness. The true nature is essencelessness without any nature, and or it's called the emptiness nature. Therefore, by understanding these emptiness nature, intrinsic emptiness nature, people can gain wisdom and insight to help them to forego the attachment of all phenomenological experience that will fall within the three types of characteristics, and to therefore develop the wisdom of non-attachment. So in this ATP, the meditation method is also aligned with the Satipatthana Sutra. And the ultimate aim of the practice is to help the participants to see the emptiness nature of the phenomenon, and so that one will be able to eliminate the delusion and attachment, which we think is the root cause of the suffering. And the pedagogy of the ATP, we've also followed the Buddhist pedagogy of the three wisdoms, the wisdom acquired from learning, from thinking and analysis, and also by direct experience. Here are the outline of the ATP. I don't have time to go through it in details, but if you're interested, you can go back to my PhD thesis. There are a lot of more details about the content of the ATP. So after developed this ATP, we want to test this whether it works or not. So we do some research on that. So the first study that we done is the randomized control trial. And before that, actually, we have done also a pilot study. But here I will share about the randomized control study. So the randomized control study is to compare the experimental group with the weighted control group. And the objective is to test the effectiveness of the ATP. So who are the participants in this research? We try to invite the middle-aged working adults in Hong Kong. Why is that so? Because the Hong Kong is one of the stressed-out cities, and the average annual working hours is much higher than many of the cosmetical city, like the Shanghai, even the Los Angeles, even the Tokyo, and even the Frankfurt. The average annual working hours is much higher than the other cities. You know, 香港人好鍾意返工. The Hong Kong people really love to work, you know that. And 97% of the Hong Kong adults suffer from the sub-health symptoms, and the most affected people are the middle-aged people. And with this, the chronic stress has increased the risk of developing mental illness and even death. And here are the inclusion criteria. I would like to highlight is that for those who self-reported that they have at least moderate distress with a score higher than 4 out of 7 in one of their living in one of their aspects, they will be included in and also invite them to join this program. And also, but for those exclusion criteria is for those who have psychiatric problem, currently engaged in psychotherapy, and also have any intensive meditation training or practice previously. So with this, we have 120 two people are randomized, and these are the flow chart how we do the randomization. And eventually, we have only 10% of the dropout rate, which is very, very low. As compared with other mindfulness-based interventions, many of them have 20% or much higher than the dropout rate here. And for the demographic characteristics, the majority are female, and the age is in both groups is around 46. And these are the education level and the marital level. And what you may be interested is maybe the religion background of these participants. And you'll find that actually, I think this is similar to the Hong Kong people profile, the population. And around 60 to 70% of them do not have any religion, and 1/4 of them are Buddhist, and then the rest less than 10 or around 10% is in other religions. We also even have Christians and other people from other religions, but we are explicitly telling them that this is a Buddhist-based intervention. We are open for you to come, but if you are comfortable with this. For the measurements, we have the self-reported psychological questionnaires, the perceived stress scales, the orientation to life questionnaires, the general health questionnaires, then the non-attachment scale, and we have some neuroscientific measures and also physiological measurement. So what are the results then? In the baseline, actually, they don't have any difference in the demographic characteristics. And also even for the psychological scores and the age between these groups, they're equivalent as the baseline. And we have done a lot of different analysis so that to have a strong and rigorous sound results. And I will not go through it into very details. So for the perceived stress scales, it indicates how people feel about their stress level. So lower the score is indicate that they have a higher, better the results, or higher, healthier, okay, psychologically. So here you can see that the ATP is much lower than that of the control group, and the p-value, that is the significance of the here. Okay, the result is very significant for the interaction effect. This is the effect size, how you can interpret. That means it is kind of very effective, which is large here in the post-test and the post-follow-up. Okay, and for the sense of coherence, what's the implications of the sense of coherence is their ability to handle stress. Okay, so in the higher the score, the better the results. And again, here the p-value is very, very significant, and then the effect size is also from medium to large. So you see that the ATP, they has a higher SOC results here. And for the general health questionnaires, it reflects the psychological well-being of the participants. And again, here you find that the p-value is very, very significant. And then we have also a large effect size. The lower the score, the better the psychological well-being. And for the non-attachment scale, and you'll find that it is also highly significant, and the results, the effect size is also very, very high. So this is another analysis that we have done, which is aligned with the results that I've just presented. And so instead of just knowing the results, oh, it is very effective, the outcome is good, but what we may also want to know is how it works, right? not only about the outcome is good, it is very effective, but how it works. So we have doing the mediation of analysis, which is the our hypothesis is that with wisdom in the form of non-attachment would be the mediating factors of the outcome of the measures. What it means is that through enhancing the wisdom of non-attachment, we think that this is a key factor that mediate the enhancement of these outcome. So these are the statistics. I would not go through it, but just want to show you that actually in the conclusion, the findings indicate that ATP is effective in improving the stress levels, the sense of coherence, psychological well-being, and wisdom of non-attachment of the middle-aged working adults, and the therapeutic improvement were maintained at 3 months follow-ups. And wisdom in the form of non-attachment serve as the key component of ATP to mediate the improvement of all the above outcome measures. So we have the neuroscientific research, and we use the ERP, and we have the HRV as the physiological measures, which is the heart rate variability, and we have some behavioral measures, which is the subjective questionnaires. And the participants' number is a little bit lower than the previous one because some participants did not attend all the experiments on the data, and also some of the data is not connected with very good because they have too much movement, so we cannot use those data. And also all these data are collected after they have attended ATP, right after complete the ATP, and the data of the waitlist control was collected at similar time point. For the ERP, we want to examine the neural mechanism of the emotional regulations induced by the ATP, especially is two key components, the compassion and the wisdom training. And also we want to investigate the impact of the compassion and wisdom meditation of the ATP on a person's neural response to sad and neutral pictures during the RLP. What we assume that ATP intervention may modulate the emotional information process in a top-down manner. So because the ATP, we invite the participants to do some contemplative practice. If the requirement of the cognitive contemplation properly will enhance the emotion regulation, and therefore we assume that the prefrontal cortex may play an essential role in the mental contemplation during the practice. And this is how we go the study. And at the very beginning, we'll give a fixation, and then this is 2000 millisecond. Actually, 1 second is equals to 1000 millisecond. So we give them some pictures, and then we ask them to do some contemplation with the contemplative cue, and then we'll ask them some questions. And this this cycle will be repeatedly, and then at the end we'll ask them some questions. This is how we go. For the first, we show them some set pictures, and then we ask them to do the wisdom meditation corresponding to this priming, like dream and bubbled. And the compassion meditation, we show them some set pictures, and we give them, ask them to do compassion meditation correspond to some, may you be free from suffering and difficulties. This is the priming words. And the neutral conditions is that we give some neural word, reality of life. And last but not least, we have the control conditions. We give the neutral pictures with neutral word priming conditions. So this is one of the sample of the set pictures, and this is about the methodology. I won't go through it. And for the physiological measures, we use the HRV, and It measures the specific changes in times between the successive heart rates. And how we interpret the data is that with higher HRV, that means they have less physiological stress. Okay. So after each experimental block, we'll ask them, to what degree do you feel you want to help the persons in the pictures? And the second question is, how miserable or sad do you think the people in the pictures feel? And how stressed do you feel? And they rate the scale, and then rate the pictures. They rate their feelings. So these are the data analysis that we have used just to show you. So what are the results? Before I go to the results, just a brief how you can interpret know a little bit about the brain, how the function. The frontal lobes involves the planning, reasoning, problem solving, social skills, and regulating the emotions. While you can see that this is in the front part of the brain, and occipital lobe is the visual part. So here, you can see that actually when after all the comparison, after all the data analysis, we have tried to see is there any differences between the compassion and the neutral conditions in the ATP and also the control group, any differences between the compassion and neutral conditions. And then after all, and then we compare these two and we give the differences between the two groups. And here we find that during the cognitive and affective processing of the information in this part here, there are significant amount of frontal activities here. We look like looking upward from the head, and these are the ear, and this is the frontal area, and this is the occipital lobe. You found that this is very active. That means they are really looking at the pictures, and here is how they process during the and seeing the pictures, and also they do the contemplative practice. So the dark dots indicate that this is very significant, and also the white dot indicate that there are significance, but not as significant as the dark dots. And we find that there are significant amount of the frontal activities during the cognitive and affective process, and also the cognitive change stage of emotion regulation in the ATP group. You don't find much anything in the frontal lobe in the control group, and it is still in the interaction. Still that we have significant effect here when comparing the difference between the two groups. We have done the source analysis. This is a 3D analysis to try to locate which part of the brain is functioning. And we find that is located in the medial prefrontal region. How about the wisdom conditions? We also still find that there is significant amount of frontal activities during the attention and the cognitive and affective processing of information time point. But we don't find differences between the two groups while we're comparing these two groups. So for the physiological results, HRV is higher in the compassion condition than that in the neutral conditions. That means actually for the ATP group, they are more resilient, and they are able to tolerate the stress while they are watching the set pictures. And in the behavioral results, I don't want to go through it into very details because of the time, but just a summary is that we find that the ATP group, they are more compassionate than that of the neutral group. And also, when they are practicing wisdom in the wisdom conditions, they are less stressful, actually. So it is aligned with our assumption. So to conclude that in this neuroscientific research, we find that a significant amount of the frontal activities after the priming of compassion meditation or wisdom meditation. And in contrast, no such frontal activity was found in the control group. And this outcome revealed that the cognitive contemplation and corresponding cognitive change will cultivate after the practice of compassion and wisdom. And it plays an important role in enhancing the ATP participants' ability of affective modulation, particularly in the emphasizing of the contemplative practice, and also the greater heart rate variability found in the compassion meditation conditions as compared to the neutral word priming conditions. And all these converging evidence showing that compassion meditation training could modulate the negative emotion process in the stages of attention deployment, cognitive changes, and behavioral process. And then going a little bit fast forward is that the APP become one of the courses offered in the Master of Buddhist Counselling program. And with this, we want to do research in a less experimental environment. We use a quasi-experimental study. That is in a more practical, real-world situations. Does it also work? So we invite the MBC students, the Master of Buddhist Counselling students, who has taken the ATP course, and while compared with the control of the Master of Buddhist Studies students in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Probably maybe some of you has participated in this research. And actually, I really don't know who has and who don't know because of the teachers and student relationship. I am serving as the instructor. I'm not the one who do the data analysis. It's my colleagues who do the data analysis. So it's all they all join in a voluntary basis. And the objective also to evaluate the effectiveness of the ATP in a more practical settings. So we use all these psychosocial questionnaires, and actually it's very similar to the one that I've just to the RCT study, but we have choose a compassion scale here, and also the non-attachment scales. We use the short form instead of the long form, but we haven't finished all the data analysis yet. This is just a preliminary results. So here we are just focused on reporting these results here. So for the demographic characteristics of the participants, the majority also is female, and the age is also kind of middle-aged adults. And the religion, I think there's unlike the previous study, the around 20-something to 30, they don't have any religion, but the majority is the Buddhist. And we have also some others religions students. And also we don't find any difference between the two groups at the baseline. And we are happy to find that the general health questionnaire, we find that their psychological well-being has become better as comparing with the control group. Here is the effect size, and you can find that it's in median effect of these results. But we don't find any, we have improvement within the group. You can see that actually the SOC is going up, and also the NAS, and also the compassion. But it is also, you can find that both groups has improvement actually. And I think MBS actually is serving as an active control group, because we believe that we learn Buddhism, even just the Buddhist teachings, it helps us, can enhance our sense of coherence and also the non-attachment, and as well as the compassion. So you find that within the group there is improvement, but there is no significant interactions in these three questionnaires. However, actually, we receive a lot of positive written feedback. The students, they find that it is very helpful for them to raise their awareness, to go through the suffering, and also it has extraordinary effect on their life. And also they find that the meditation practice is very useful, and also the wisdom of non-attachment and compassion is important to apply in their daily life to reduce their stress and suffering. And all these shows that actually it is kind of effective in helping the students. So what we find is interesting is that we try to compare the participants, the results of the two studies at their baseline. And in the general health, you find that the RCT studies is the previous studies, the quasi-experimental study is the MBC and the MBS studies. And you find that actually, because in the GHQ, the lower the score, the better the psychological well-being. You find that even at the baseline, the MBC students and the MBS students are much lower than the previous studies one. And here is the reference for you to see actually how well is their psychological well-being. And for the SOC, and here again, in the MBC and the MBS students, the SOC at the baseline are much higher than that the previous studies in the RCT. And again, in the non-attachment scale, we can't do it for the direct comparison because the previous one we used the long version, but in the quasi-experimental study we used the short version. So by comparing, we try to find the mean score per items then. And you find that also here, for the MBS and the MBC students, they have a higher non-attachment level than that of the general public that recruit in the middle-aged adults. So what we think that actually why we have it's not that easy for us to have such a interaction significant results. One of the reasons is that, of course, MBS is serving as an active control group. They also receive the Buddhist teachings. So they have, from the data, you find that they have also enhanced their SOC and the non-attachment and also their general health. And also from the baseline, you can also reflect that actually, if one do not suffer enough, which is the first noble truth, if you don't find that you are very suffering properly, it's very difficult for you to have improvement. And so here, as a conclusion for all the studies that I presented, the significance and the contributions and the implications of the ATP, the research that we have, how is that in the theoretical level, ATP is the first intervention of its kind to adopt a theory-driven and doctrinally aligned approach to formulate as a group-based Mahayana Buddhist intervention with reference to Salimacchana Sutra of the Yogacara traditions. This offers a new approach for the researchers to develop the group-based Mahayana Buddhist intervention. And the underlying mechanism that I've just showed you, the mediation analysis, has been established theoretically, which may inform the program design of the Buddhist-derived interventions. And from the empirical levels, this studies has been scientifically tested its visibility and also effectiveness and the underlying mechanism. It provides a solid foundations for future studies. And all these results that could be transferred to other settings and populations. And also the level of effectiveness of the ATP may be affected by the participants' level of psychological suffering, the level of non-attachment, and the level of ability to handle stress at their baseline. So ATP might be more effective for those who have a certain level of suffering that is aligned with the teachings of the First Noble Truth. And if you're interested to have further details about our research, you're welcome to website to scan these QR codes to see more details about the studies. That's all about my presentation. And to the acknowledgement, I would like to acknowledge the Li Ka-shing Foundation and the team and the research team members and all the participants who have helped us in doing all this research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wu. Let's come back after lunch at 1:40. 1:40. Let's come back after lunch at 1:40. Thank you very much.